Welcome to Public Affairs Public Access, brought to you by Houston Media Source and the League of Women Voters Education Fund. My name is Jeff Reichman, and we are here for the next hour talking to three of our rising stars from the League of Women Voters this year. The Rising Stars Award is issued to people in our community who are doing great things, advancing democracy, and being just generally good citizens. They all come from different backgrounds, and I'm really excited to have a conversation with you all today. We have Marissa Marquez, Greg Griffin, and Dolores Colunga-Stawitz. And we're going to go around the room here, and maybe each of you can introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about what you do and what you're passionate about. Starting with you, Dolores.
Hi, I'm Dolores Colunga-Stawitz. I'm a native Houstonian. Gee, what else can I say? I'm really passionate about getting people out to vote, making sure that people that are in disenfranchised areas have the ability to make sure that they have the opportunity to vote. I really wasn't involved in politics during my younger years. About the age of 20, 25, I decided, you know, I need to make sure that we have the opportunity to get out there and vote, make our voices heard. You would hear so many different things about different areas with poll taxes. And I just thought that, you know, we can't have that here in Texas again. So I made it my task to get out there and support candidates that I saw that were aligned with the point of view that I had. And I am very humbled by the fact that the League of Women Voters have bestowed the Rising Stars program to me. So thank you for having us here. Thank you.
A little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Laredo, Texas. I have been an attorney for about 10 years now. I'm doing HR work now. You talked about how, you know, the program chooses individuals that are involved in their community, and that started back since high school, volunteering in Laredo, volunteering while I was in college. And I'm on the Bike Houston board here in Houston, so that's currently most of my community service. And I just volunteer in the community when needed. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Greg?
So by day, I run the marketing department for a law firm. By night, or by other time, I am also try to stay active in the community and in politics. I was born with a rare muscle disorder, and was fortunate that the Shriners were there to able to help me. And so I'm now able to walk because of that. And so I've always wanted to give back to the community in any way I can. And so I was very active in high school in Kiwanis, Key Club, which is a division of Kiwanis. I volunteered with Shriners. I'm on the board of the Houston Bar Association Auxiliary, and we do a charity organization that runs through the bar. I got involved in politics in '09 when Mayor Parker was running for her first mayoral election, and I found a good group of organizations that I became very active in, helped those candidates, endorsements and all that. Went on to Washington in 2010 to do the Equality March. Came back, and I've registered voters a couple times now. And anyway, get back in politics, and I like the local level because I know how it goes all the way to the top. So excited for this opportunity, and let's roll.
That's
Great.
That's great. Another kind of general question for each of you, and Greg, I'd love for you to kick it off. In this hyper-partisan world that we're living in, there are very few organizations like the League of Women Voters that are nonpartisan, that are open to people of all political ideologies, as long as you believe in democracy and the right to one person and one vote. What is the League's role today, you know, in this, you know, President Trump era of being that nonpartisan voice in a hyper-partisan world? What does that look like to you?
You know, I've been very involved in partisan politics in the organizations that are partisan, and so being involved in the League, I find the partisan thing that we are involved in right now is very interesting in a whole, because I feel like there's also the next generation coming up that are more centered. Some of us have our very, you know, different side views, but I feel like there are a lot of people that are more centered, and I'm not saying they're still, you know, right or left, but they're not, you know, they're not so much divided like they were maybe 30, 40 years ago or something like that. So I think it's important for an organization like this to really focus on the nonpartisanship and to educate the voters with the voting guide and things like that to show that we've done our homework and here's who we think you should support, not based on what our PAC says or something like that.
Sure.
Right. For me, I think it's what Greg was saying about educating people out there through the voter guide, through having forums. I really believe in collaboration and working together, and I've seen it in politics where if both sides just talk to each other and hash it out, I think that would bring more success to the issues that we're trying to establish. And so I think the League's role is educating, collaborating, understanding each side, and then, giving that information out to the community so that everybody can understand clearly what each side stands for, what the issues are.
That's great.
And I find what both Marissa and Greg have said are very, very strong points and things that I highly believe in. The League of Women Voters has done such an outstanding job in getting the materials out there, helping to educate the public of how important it is to be able to vote. And I find it within myself that, I may be on one side of the political spectrum, but to me, it's an important job that they do every day. Involving people and getting them to understand that, yes, this is your right. This is something that you need to do. And we're helping you by offering you materials, whether in English, Spanish, whatever language that you speak, to make sure that you understand that this is your right. And this is something you need to exercise because your voice does make a big difference in this troubling times that we have.
Well, Dolores, you specifically in your application talked about helping people from underserved areas vote and
Yes.
cast an educated ballot. And you also talked about how debates and forums and what the League does in fostering that debate can help with that. Maybe you can expand on that a little for us.
Well, I've grown up in an area, I grew up in the east side of Houston, and I saw that there was a lot of disenfranchisement there. To me, I often thought, what is it that I can do to help people understand that they need to get out to make their voices heard? And I became a voter registrar, so I could get people registered to vote and help them understand. There's a lot of folks out there also who say, why should I register to vote? My vote isn't going to stand for anything. And it's up to me, it's up to those of us within the League of Women Voters to help them understand and help educate them that we must make the concerted effort to get them involved in the process. Because if you don't get out there and do this, you don't have a voice. And as we always say in Spanish, su voto es su voz. Well, and that's very important. I find that the Hispanic community definitely needs to get out there, make their voices heard, get a stronger voice, and get more education out there. And that's what I want to focus on with the League, to make sure that we are out there helping folks in these areas that are not served normally by anybody else.
And as a demographic, Hispanic voters have the lowest voter turnout
Absolutely.
of all the demographics. So this is a challenge that has been, it's a perennial challenge every year. How is the landscape different now?
Well, now that we have started to elect more Hispanic individuals into office, I think we need to help engage them to help us to have a voice, to show them that yes, we can do it. We look at someone like Sonia Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice. She's an excellent person for us to be able to focus on and help us get them to understand. We have folks in the media like Jorge Ramos. He's a wonderful voice for explaining things to people and telling them and showing them how important it is. And as strange as it sounds, the former president of Mexico has also been involved. I mean, it may be, videos that are a little bit cheeky, but that's beside the point. He's helping people understand that it is important that we make that effort to get ourselves all together and to get out there to vote, to increase these numbers. Because if we don't do it ourselves, who is going to do it for us?
That's very true. Well, thank you for that.
Welcome.
Marissa, you mentioned you're on the board of Bike Houston, and in your application you talked about advocating for cyclists in low-income communities. Houston, as everybody who's watching this knows, is not a city that's set up for cycling. It's not a city by design that favors cyclists. Where do you see the intersection of cycling as a form of transportation or recreation and a form of social advocacy?
I guess a form of, the low-income community, cycles. It's statistically, it's out there. The League of American Bicyclists, has a lot of stats on that. And that's kind of my, I guess, mission to have people understand in Houston that community does bike, and we need to pay attention to that community, just like Dolores was talking about underserved communities. It comes with cycling as well. And I think that, Houston has a large immigrant community, a large refugee community. We were talking about the Hispanic population, about, I believe, 32, maybe 29% almost are Hispanic in Houston. Don't quote me on that, but I know the last time I saw it, I thought to myself, wow, that's pretty big. And then everybody knows that Latinos will be the largest minority group in the U.S. So we need to start paying attention to that demographic. And with cycling, we also need to start paying attention to that demographic. And a lot of refugees and immigrants that come here are not only Latino, they're different, people from different countries who depend on cycling to go to the grocery store, to take their kids to school. I've seen it, people, post on social media, they've seen it. It's true, it happens, if people don't believe me. So I think that happens with, let's pay attention to this demographic about cycling, but then you were talking about social advocacy. Well, what else does that community need? And with cycling, it's infrastructure along with, other social issues. But, the bike plan is in place. So Bike Houston's working on it along with the city. So hopefully in the next about 15 years, that plan will be, they'll start building it piece by piece. But, yeah, I mean, does that answer your question about
does.
it? Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious, how is Houston different than other cities? It seems like Houston's infrastructure is a little bit further behind other cities in terms of cycling. So does that make the needs of low-income or at-risk communities greater because there's major infrastructure issues, or what other nuances come with that?
Well, right. So let's put the foundation out there. So Houston's the fourth largest city, and we don't have a great infrastructure for cycling. New York City also is one of the biggest cities, and they're probably way better than us as far as cycling. So we need to pay attention to that. And so I feel like that, the low-income community needs attention with the cycling issues because they don't have the infrastructure, which involves them getting into accidents, not knowing about how to ride a bike. So we are advocating for that. Bike Houston does educate the community on Traffic Skills 101, that type of education to that community and to everyone who wants to come to the Traffic 101 classes. But anyways, does that answer your question about that it just kind of, it's like a domino effect, right? So if I don't have the infrastructure to get to work because I can't get a license because I'm a refugee, and then, I get into an accident with my child while I'm driving them to work, riding them to work. So there's all kinds of issues that kind of happen because of that. It's just a domino effect.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Greg, you described in your application an epiphany when you went to the National Equality March in D.C. a few years ago. I'd love to know more about that experience. What made you come home and want to register voters and get more involved in the community?
It was just really eye-opening seeing, just so many times when you're not involved in politics or making a change or whatever, you don't feel like you have a voice or you don't feel like you have the option to do anything to really make a change. And to bring how many ever hundreds of thousands of people together in DC, which was my first time there, and it's marching down these streets, and I know they do it for they do it for a lot of different organizations and things, but to march down these streets, that knowing one day that, what I would be doing was in the history books, marching up onto the Capitol, and there were people way down the mall, just packed everywhere. Lady Gaga was there speaking. Cynthia Nixon was there speaking. So you could tell that the tide at that time was turning for GLBT rights. And, we were there just to march for equality. I mean, our chant was, don't ask, don't tell. Let's repeal that. And that was 7 years ago. And now I've got full rights to do, pretty much just like everyone else. And so that's why when I came back, being at the local level and being able to work with these leaders and stuff, some of the city council members I still considered my friends, the mayor, and I worked at the mayor's office shortly thereafter, and I worked closely with First Lady Kathy Hubbard, and so I just knew the local politics meant something and that you could really make a difference. I don't know, it was just a super cool experience, probably one of the best ones I've had.
That's awesome. So perhaps you'd like to comment on the special session right now and what's going on in terms of folks wanting to basically deny transgender people certain rights.
I haven't. I've watched some of the committee meetings and I've watched some of the floor votes and things like that. And I have some friends that went down there and spoke on behalf of, spoke to the committee and things like that, and they rallied. And I do have to say I'm very proud of the people that I know that went down there, and even the religious rally that was yesterday. I saw the numbers from that, and just the quantity and the diversity of the religious leaders that went down there and spoke. I know there were several from local churches here in Houston. The things that were said brought back so many horrible memories. I'm talking about from the elected officials. So many horrible memories from stuff that as a gay man, what we heard about ourselves and things like that. And it just shows the cluelessness of what they're speaking of, and just the political sides that they're speaking on. They're not looking at the stories that have been told, or they're not looking at the people that they're affecting. And it goes back to the HERO ordinance that was in Houston, 3 years ago? Mm-hmm. And it's the same rhetoric, and it's like they don't. It just bothers. It just bothers me. It hits a emotional tone. And
I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, it's just it sickens me that these people can sit there and talk about someone like that and not even have met them, and just hear their story and then just turn. There was one story that really. There's one story that really spoke to me, and I had just had my two screens on at work, and I think I had it was back in the browser, and all of a sudden I hear this gentleman, and he says, "Well, I'm so and so, and I'm from some Texas," and he's like, "I'm 76 years old," and I'm just like, "Oh gosh, here we go." Like, you're expecting, because you're expecting him to say things very negative. And he says, "My granddaughter is transgender," and I just broke down in tears. Like, I was just like, and then the next person just starts talking complete opposite, and and I'm just like, how are you people calling yourselves Christians or humans or whatever it may be, And it's like, so that's, sure. I don't get it. I don't get playing political sides with someone's life like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's interesting because we are living in the midst of a political awakening right now for a lot of people, and a lot of people are just starting to get involved in politics, and sometimes it's extreme. We have extremes on both sides that we're dealing with. And unfortunately, we have some serious extremes in the Texas legislature right now. But, there's movements on both sides of the aisle to put a new generation of elected leaders in. And Marissa, you are one of the co-founders of the Latino Texas PAC. Yeah. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about that experience of co-founding a PAC and what drives you to help elect more Latinos to office.
Sure. So I first want to say that there are a lot of people that put the PAC together.
Sure. But you were one of them.
I was.
Yeah.
I did help write the bylaws, which wasn't that difficult, but everybody said, "You're an attorney, you write them." We had other attorneys on in the group that assisted. The idea was that the PAC was, and it's still going. I'm still a member. I'm just not as involved as a board on the board or anything like that. But the idea was to create a nonpartisan PAC whose mission was to elect more Latinos into office. Just like Dolores touched on earlier, and like I said earlier, the Latino population's growing and we can't deny it. And I know it sounds, you hear it again and again. We want to see somebody in office that looks like us, right? Just like anybody would, and represent the population that's out there. And then we'll get into, the lack of Latinos voting in Texas and in general. But that's the PAC's idea in doing the nonpartisan PAC and electing, Latinos into office. But the other nuance is we want Latinos into office, but then we do want non-Latinos in office that are fighting for Latino issues. So, when we were creating the PAC, we had that conversation of, yes, we want more Latinos in office, but if we don't have any Latinos running for office and we see the candidates, then we're going to vet them and ask them, what are you doing for Latino issues? What are your goals? What's your platform to connect with the Latinos and fight for Latino issues? What are Latino issues? That's what everybody, is trying to define. And, we were trying to discuss that as we were creating the PAC. And I think the answer that we came up with was what everybody wants, right? We all want our kids to go to great schools. We all want to have access to the same resources everybody has. And so, so that was the idea of the PAC. Was that your question? Sorry if I kind of went off. But,
no, you didn't. That was great.
But yeah, so that's the idea. So I don't want people to think that the PAC is more for, it's nonpartisan, and so and the idea is to elect, yes, Latinos, but also candidates that are not Latino per se, but are fighting for Latino issues in some way or shape or form. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and to people outside of the Latino community who are not necessarily following along at home as far as how different demographics tend to trend in their voting, the Latino voting bloc, if you can even call it that, is extraordinarily diverse. It encompasses so many different parts of the political spectrum. Dolores, I'm curious, right, as we get more Latinos to vote, and there's growth on both sides of the aisle of Latino members of both political parties. I think it's great that the PAC is nonpartisan, because there should be growth across the board. What's the responsibility, and what are the ways in which Latino issues can be surfaced through community dialogue? What are the things that, what are the questions that the entire community can ask to the Latino community in dialogues like this to properly surface and address issues?
Well, I think what Marissa touched on earlier is what do we want? What do we really need? What does anybody really want? Better schools, better, for our children. We want the opportunity to be able to grow within the community and realize that we are the minority in this country, and not be afraid to go out and look at the different issues that are impacting us, regardless what it is, on both sides of the aisles. It shouldn't just be the left says that we need to have education, better health care, voting opportunities. It should be on both sides, and we should speak to each other. Okay, what can we do to make this happen for all of us? It shouldn't just be because you're on the right, you've got more money than I do. It shouldn't be the left, well, you guys can't have it. What are we going to do to work together to make this happen? It just can't be depending on us. On the Latino community, we need help from everybody. There's a lot of learned people, don't get me wrong, within the Latino community, and we need to pull in some of our representatives to help us with this. I know there's been a lot of rhetoric lately about platforms on the national level and what they look like and what they stand for. Well, let's see what we can do to work to make it us instead of just me. That's one of the things that we forget. It's not just about me, it's about everybody. I'm sorry. No. It's about everybody that we, that we need to include. As a kid, I never thought about these things. I never thought that, I could make a difference. But then when I started getting involved in political processes within different candidates, in fact, the big one that I got involved with first was Gracie Sines running for mayor of Houston. I mean, we were 100% behind her. So we worked on that. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way we wanted to. Then after that, I got my feet wet with a group called Latina PAC here in Houston. We were nonpartisan, and we supported candidates that were working for the Latino community. And it just wasn't Hispanics, and it just wasn't people from the left working together. We pulled people from the right also. What can we do? We're together, unidos. What is it we want to do? We want to be able to put issues out there. Healthcare, voting, children, in the environment, doing things that are going to help us, voting, just getting out there, the judiciary. What can we do to change it? How can we be more inclusive? You touched on something earlier, Greg, about the LGBT community and how you feel about it. Well, I feel the same way because I have a family member who is gay. And they look at, people look at him like, wow, why? No, it's not why. It's, I love you. And I don't care who or what you are. It doesn't matter to me what color skin you have, what nationality, what gender, how you identify yourself. It's not that. It's that we have to think about all of us, not just them and them. No, pull together. Let's get the issues out there that are important, that impact our family, our governments, our home, our jobs, environment. So let's work together. Let's get it done. Let's not just pull apart. We need to get together. And as divisive as things are right now in the local, not really local, in the state and federal government, no, we have to work together. We have to create an answer that's going to help all of us, not just one individual, one group.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
One thing you touched on, excuse me, is
Please.
the judiciary, and people don't realize how important judicial elections are, local, and how much of an impact you can have on them. I went to an event last week, or a couple weeks ago, and it was all the judicials were there getting their petition signed, and I had a friend. He was like, "You're so close to, like, not me close to the people, but he's like, being here and you're so one-on-one with the person, and you get to talk to them about their issues and their this and that, and like, he's like, wow, you really can make a difference at the judicial level. So many people just blow off the judicial elections because there's so many seats open that people don't think that they make a difference. So I think the judicial things is a very important election to look at. It may not be mayoral or governor or president. I think it's a very important thing to look at.
I want to jump right back into that point, but we have a phone call.
Oh gosh.
So, Mark, if you want to pipe them through.
This better not be a judicial candidate.
It's the judge.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, this is Linda, Jeff.
Hi, Linda.
I would like you to ask your guests if they could ever imagine living in some place other than Houston.
I think that's a great question.
I've lived in New York City before, and I could see myself living in Colorado. So that's Georgetown, Colorado. That's my favorite place to go to. So yes, I could envision myself living in Colorado. No problem whatsoever.
What do you like about Houston?
What do I love about Houston? It's my home. And I just love the people here. We have such a diverse community that I think that is so important, and we need to cherish and treasure who and what we are and keep that going and make it even better than what it is today.
How about you, Marissa?
I like D.C. actually. I like Washington, D.C. with all the politics over there, but I do like it, honestly, and Seattle, but I think the weather keeps me in Texas. But I really do like Houston. I lived in Austin for law school and Waco for college, grew up in Laredo, so Houston has actually been pretty good to me, and I really enjoy it, and meeting the people here has been great. So
You used to say it's Seattle and the weather. It was 106 up there today, and it was 96 here. So you might want to rethink that one.
I've been up there in the cold.
Oh, yeah, that's way
so
different. That's way different.
like for the holidays. So
you could-
I
you
kind of
could
was
summer
like,
up
it's
there.
beautiful in the summer, but anyways.
You know, I grew up in Waco, went to school in Chicago, and then moved to Houston about 12 years ago. And I'm fortunate that I have seen Houston grow and change exponentially. You know, I'm now my third mayor, and I remember Mayor White had so many plans to put in Discovery Green or put in all the the bike paths, you know, that connected Discovery Green. I saw things that Mayor Parker did, and I'm seeing things that Mayor Turner's doing. And I'm also seeing it on a different level. I have friends that are in government. I have friends that, we have world-class chefs here. When I first moved here, we were the fattest city, or fourth fattest city in the nation, or first fattest, I don't remember, it was something bad. Anyway, it's changed now, and people actually get to go to these like just amazing restaurants. And even our ballpark, I went to Minute Maid the other day, and
It's beautiful.
yeah, I mean, there's
on Monday.
there's a Smash Burger, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? I don't remember. But
And the best team in the American League.
There,
yeah,
that's it. That's it.
the neighborhoods have changed. Some have
Yeah.
changed ridiculously expensive, but they're still cheaper than living in Austin or LA or DC.
Yeah.
So I think the quality of life in Houston is so great. Do I see myself living anywhere else? That's a toss-up, because I can sometimes see myself living again in like Chicago or in Atlanta or something like that. But there's so much that keeps me in Houston, that keeps me grounded, that I really do like it here. And I have kind of fallen in love with this concrete jungle that's turned green.
Thank you for the question, Linda.
Thanks,
Do you
Linda.
have any other questions?
Well, I wanted to ask you what you love about Houston, Jeff.
That's a good question. Well, I moved here 8 years ago, and I also saw it change considerably. And I think it's something that I really love about it is that it's diverse. It's got every type of person that you can imagine, and that is a little microcosm of life. And it keeps you grounded, and it keeps you aware of other people's, lifelong internal struggles that they're going through for whatever reason. It's also a really great place to do business. It's a friendly place, and frankly, what keeps me here is that I think this is really what the future of this country is going to look like, and we're seeing it now. And by being here now, thank you, by being here now, and by being able to witness this, we just have a unique perspective on how the world is going to unfold. And it also means that some really good work can be done here right now.
Absolutely.
So I'll take this opportunity to plug the League of Women Voters upcoming program this year. If you're watching and you're interested in getting involved in any of our study and advocacy work, we are updating several of our positions and embarking on a election cybersecurity study. If you'd like to learn more about that study, go to lwvhouston.org, put your email address in that little pop-up window there, and you'll be getting an email shortly about it. So thank you for the phone call. I keep looking up because that's where your voice comes from, but thank you for the phone call, Linda. It's great talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign off, but not before I notice that one of the things that we all love about Houston is HNS TV.
Yes, that
Yes.
is so true. That is so
Absolutely.
true. Thank you so much, Linda. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we've each brought up some individual politicians that we've either worked with or had some experience with. I always think this is I love hearing people's answer to this question, but tell me about a politician that you've worked with in the past, or a relationship, good or bad, that you've had with them, maybe what you learned from that. And anybody can start.
I guess my husband and I went to New Hampshire to work with Howard Dean during his campaign, and we found out so much about who he is, what he does, what he stands for. Phenomenal individual. He was here in Houston also. We got a chance to visit with him and spend some time finding about what he's about. Another one, Gracie Sines. She's such a phenomenal individual. Also an attorney, which is great. And her mindsets and beliefs and what she saw for Houston, her vision for Houston, was just something that attracted us to help with her. And it's as strange as it sounds that every time I tried to get out of doing political work because I was really tired and I needed a break, as soon as that break would start, I would have a phone call or an email. Hey, we need you to come back and help work on the campaign. As they said in The Godfather, every time I tried to get out, they pulled me right back in. So, you know, it's one of those things. But working on even campaigning for President Obama was something that was really phenomenal, that I really enjoyed. The people that you meet, the individuals that you get to work with. It's just, it kind of takes your breath away because you look at the folks that are working with and for him, or for the, for the candidate. And you hear what they have to say, how they say it, and you hear the exact words that are in your mind, what you're thinking, what you want to say, and you don't have to say it. They've already said it for you, and it just makes you feel really, really good being able to be part of those things. And it's just something that I love and I enjoy, and hopefully I'll be able to do that for many, many years to come.
That's great. Thank you.
I've actually worked for 2 commissioners of the Texas Workforce Commission appointed by former Governor Rick Perry. One of them was Hope Andrade, who was the first Latina to be Secretary of State. And then she moved to become commissioner representing employers at the Texas Workforce Commission. So I was legal counsel for her for about a year and a half, and before I moved to Houston. And she was an extraordinary lady. She was very collaborative, good listener. I could say I learned a lot of leadership skills from her in the sense of what it really means to lead, no matter what your thought process is, and kind of getting your team on the same page. And also as a woman, as a Latina in a pretty tough political world, and holding her own. And so that was a great experience. And I've also campaigned for Congressman Henry Cuellar down in Laredo when he was a state rep and a U.S. rep. But and that was always, campaigns are always fun. You meet a lot of fun people. It's a lot of hard work, and so that's and that's great. And from him, I learned hard work. What it takes to be a hard worker, what it takes to campaign, and kind of got the ins and outs of what that looks like. So yeah, those are the 2 that I would choose of politicians that I've worked with. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So I'm going to bring Mary Parker just because I worked with her on such a close level and got to be really active in her campaign. And
Great lady.
and for someone who lost 2 elections, and then made her 3rd one for city council, and just kept persevering and kept going and kept her eye on the prize, and just really kept shielding away what everyone said, and just all the whatever negativity there was, or there's a reason why I'm not a politician. There's a reason I'm in the back office
Right.
because I could not handle that.
Right.
Right. But and then I remember first time meeting her and just at the campaign office, just being like, oh my gosh, I'm in the potential mayor's campaign office. Oh my gosh, and but then working with her closely in the actual mayor's office and seeing her on a day-to-day basis, and just seeing how she handles herself and her staff and handles her decisions. And I feel like by knowing her, she really is one of those people that is putting the best interests of her citizens before her, and just looking at the whole picture and not just what's her political agenda. Obviously, she was in office for 18 years, but still, I think there was a reason why she was in office for 18 years. She just kept moving everything forward, and I think our city was really in a good position because she was mayor. Mm-hmm. And I'm very fortunate to have worked so closely with her and her family and all that kind of stuff.
That's fantastic.
That's great.
This is a general question for all of you. As I mentioned earlier, and I will plug again, we are embarking on a series of study and advocacy sessions over the next year, including election cybersecurity, which is an obvious choice for study given the news. But we have several positions. We have dozens of positions on everything from the environment to housing to the city budget, and balancing the city budget and having good fiscal accountability. What are some of the things that the League of Women Voters could use its convening power to study in the coming years that would be highly relevant? And keeping in mind that the result of a study is a position that we can then go advocate for. So if we say we study the city budget and then we can go advocate for a balanced budget. What are some of the areas that we could approach in a nonpartisan way that could give us some good platforms to stand on in the future?
Well, I'm going to jump in here.
Sure.
I think what has happened this week is a very interesting thing. As I was pulling in, I was listening to a news station, and Al Gore's movie comes out tomorrow, the Inconvenient sequel or whatever, and they were again talking about how his mansion in Nashville is da 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 da. And then, as I said a while ago, it's 106 up in Seattle, and it's it was 85 here today, or whatever it was. And then we also have someone in office that's saying that global warming is not an issue, or things like this. So I think it's a very good nonpartisan thing to really have someone to really look at. And I think Houston has such a powerhouse of, and if we're talking to the local level, I think we have such a powerhouse of engineers and people down in NASA. We have Dr. Kleinberg over at the Kinder Institute. We have so many intelligent institutions here that could really move a study like that forward, and probably take it on the national level and really make a difference, a nonpartisan issue.
That's great.
Interesting.
I would say, of course, cycling.
Okay. Yeah.
What that would look like, I don't know how the study would go. I know the Kinder Institute is conducting a study about cyclists and accidents right now. If you are in an accident, you report it to Kinder, and they kind of mark it down, and it's a survey. But I would say that I think that's a good nonpartisan issue that touches on every community, and I think that that I guess flourishes other issues like obesity, the health of our community, that type of thing. Besides the low-income communities, or some communities use cycling for transportation, I think that will just kind of bring up other issues that we need to be aware of as a city. But I don't know how that would happen, but that's my dream.
That's a good dream.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, even segueing into that, the transportation issue is such a
Right.
huge thing, because a lot of people believe that if we're trying to put in more trains, if we're trying to expand our transit systems,
Right.
that's such a negative thing. It's not. What we're doing with that is making sure that people have the opportunity to get to work, rather than having to work, well, I can't work, or I need to find something. They may be capable and have the skills to do more than what they're doing in their own neighborhoods, but they can't get to the jobs that they need to get to because there is no transportation there. And we need to really have that dialogue and make sure that people understand that this is something good for the entire community, for the entire city. Because if people go to work, people pay taxes. And what do taxes do? They pay for what we need to do. So it's just something that's so important, something that we really do need to look at, rather than bickering about why are you doing this?
We can bicker too,
Yeah,
but-
yeah, that's fine. But the thing is that we need to see that is an important issue, because people do have skills, people do want to work, people want to pay, are going to pay taxes. So if they're able to get to work, they're able to do that.
And I think on the
Yeah.
flip side of that,
Yeah.
it greatly affects employees,
Mm-hmm.
but it also affects employers. I know people that work downtown and having to stay in a Class A or down to a Class C building because their employees can only get downtown
Mm-hmm.
via the park and ride or the main mass transit. So I think if we were to expand it like a city like Chicago or something like that, where you can pretty much get anywhere, then we wouldn't have these people that don't want to be downtown. As far as employers, they could also be up here on the loop, or so it
Mm-hmm.
could greatly increase, I think, a lot more employee.
Right, and you see that in Washington, you see that in New York, and they're able to get around everywhere. I mean, you go from the Bronx in New York, you can go down to Queens, you go out to Long Island. I mean, you are able to actually get from one point to the other without having to worry that you have to, who's going to take me there? How am I going to get there? I don't
Right.
have a car. So you're right, it impacts both the employee and the employer, and the ability to get a job done because you're able to get to that particular job.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate
Yeah.
last year, I think it was last year, my car was stolen.
You were fortunate because your car was.
Well, it worked out for a while. I didn't, because I was like, I lived at West Dallas and Wall, and I work on Dallas downtown, 500 Dallas, One Allen Center. So I was like, why am I buying a car Like I could literally just, it's a mile, 1.2 miles. I could walk, but I was fortunate because the bus system went right there.
Oh.
So I would walk out of my apartment, jump on the bus, and it dropped me off right in front of my office. So I was very fortunate that, and I actually enjoyed it. And I didn't have a car for 9 months. If I needed to go to the grocery store, I'd go to Whole Foods, but I could also Uber to Target or whatever. And now I live on the north side, near North Side, and I mean I have to have a car, and I'm on the train tracks now. So sometimes I will take the train to my office just because get my steps in. But
I think this is a really relevant conversation to a larger issue, which is, you know, the city of Houston has embarked on a technology and innovation task force, which has put together some findings that are basically meant to attract tech companies to Houston. And the way in which they do that, the philosophy behind it is that there's a dense urban core with multimodal transit options, with live, work, play, all kind of within, you know, some type of connectivity between all three.
Right.
As we start to make plans like that as a city, and as we start to implement things like the bike plan, what's the time horizon before Houston arrives, so to speak? We have all the assets. I'm not saying that we're not there, but you know, if you go downtown, if you went downtown 10 years ago,
you wouldn't stay.
you would. Yeah, there was nothing there, and now downtown is. I would go so far as to describe it as vibrant. Downtown is great. If we're going to continue this path, what are some of the things that we can do in addition to implementing the bike plan to realize that goal of density, of live, work, play, of that kind of just electrons bouncing around off of one another?
Well,
No, go ahead.
I was at Minute Maid, like I said the other day, and I was surprised by the number of buildings and apartments and everything right around Minute Maid.
Right.
And I was like, this could be the next Wrigleyville. But then I was like, wait, there's one restaurant. You know, so it's like, who wants to live when there's no work or play in this small area? I think a great example was when they built Market Square Park.
Yeah.
They made a dog park that was big enough for this table with 2 dogs in it at one time. And now they put up these huge towers that are amazing, that have, you know, tenfold increased the tenants around there. And so I think it's coming. I think as more things open, like you said, when I moved here 12 years ago, I remember coming downtown at 5:06 or 5:30 and being like, where is everybody?
It's tumbleweed.
Starbucks is closed. And they weren't under the ground, they were just out of downtown. And so I think you can see more of a more, you know, rejuvenating and getting more people down here. There's more restaurants on Main Street and stuff, but I think the small pockets of little areas they're not as revitalized as they are, but I could see it probably in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's not too long.
Because I think we're going to get more people. I mean, like Chevron bought the old YMCA to build another tower to make that their downtown campus. So I think we're getting more businesses coming down here, which more young urban professionals, you know, not to use the 80s word, but, you know, they're moving down here because people don't want yards. People don't want, you know, and I lived in a high rise, like I said, over on Wall in Dallas, and I had people that were retiring that lived in the suburbs that were like, I don't want a yard anymore. And so they lived in my urban loft, you know, that was perfectly manicured and everything. So I think the tides are changing just for a whole demographic of people come back inside the loop to experience that lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question for y'all, and then we will sign off for the evening. And Marissa, I want to start with you. You come from, your family has a legacy of public service. What's it like growing up in a family where you have elected officials, and how does that shape your outcome or your outlook today?
Like I stated earlier, I like being collaborative, and I think that's what I've learned from my relatives, being in office, in trying to work with both sides, trying to listen to the community, trying to listen to the opposite side, trying to come to a consensus. So I think that's kind of shaped in my thinking as an attorney, as an HR professional, being very objective maybe. And it's also, you know, like Greg stated earlier, I'm not going to ever run for office, I don't think, because it is tough. It is a tough job. Not everybody can do that job. And that's when I definitely learned that, when friends tell me, hey, I'm thinking for running, I'm like, well, let me know when you want to talk about it, because I can tell you that it is pretty tough. And I've also learned to be a hard worker. With campaigning, our whole family would go and campaign, and it was knocking on doors, phones, no fun at all, working nonstop. And so that's taught me to be kind of just really working hard, going to law school, that was a lot of hard work, and just, meeting my goals and having goals and that type of thing. That mentality has really, made me the person that I am today. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. How about you, Greg?
I don't have any elected officials.
Oh, I'm sorry. How
I was like, wait, what?
how did
None of my
your
family was
family? I asked the question in my head. I should have asked you.
That's
out loud.
okay.
How did your family help shape your outlook today?
One thing I pride my mom on is there's 3 brothers, and like I said earlier, I had a kind of a struggle with my health when I was a kid, and my parents, being from Waco, we were lucky to go to Shriners and stuff, so forth and so on. One thing I pride my mom on is letting the 3 of us be individuals. We could not be any more different than we are together. But we all there's a group text every morning with all of our family on it. We all talk every single day. So I love that my family lets us have individuality, but we still have the core competencies and the core values of what we all share. Like I said, I'm probably the only one involved in politics in my family. I think they watch the news sometimes, but this is my own journey. Like I said, it's the epiphany I had from starting at the local level and doing the national thing.
That's fantastic.
Great.
Dolores, how did your family help shape your outlook today?
Coming from a family of 10,
Wow.
you learn that you need to pull your weight there. I started helping my parents when I was 7 years old. It was very difficult for us coming from a family of 10. Both parents had to work, so there were different things that we had to do to help. Mine was going with my mom when she needed to go clean homes, or if the neighbor needed her yard getting cut or her house cleaned, whatever it was. So that helped me realize the value of hard work and what it is in anything that I did. It carried through. I know I put that ambition into the political campaigns that I would work with, and it also helped me instill that in my sons. My youngest son was born with congenital problems, but I also allowed him the strength, teach him how to be strong enough to be able to take care of himself and how to do things for himself, and instilled in him that I wasn't going to be there for his entire life. So he needed to learn to stand on his own 2 feet and figure out what to do. I was always going to be there, but he needed to learn that he was going to be in charge of what happened with his life. Having seen him almost die a couple of times with surgeries, and seeing him bounce back the way he did and done as much as he's done, I realized that this child is my touchstone. If he can do anything in his life and not let anything bother him, who am I to complain? Who am I to complain about anything? And that has given me even more strength to pursue what it is I wanted to do and what I needed to do. And complaints, I don't have any. Because if this child can accomplish everything that he has, I have no right to complain about anything.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to all 3 of you. You're all extraordinarily impressive people.
Thank you.
And I have the luxury of being able to sit here and ask you the questions that I want to ask you. So
You're next, right?
Yeah, our question to you is,
So thank you all for joining us tonight.
You're very welcome.
And thank you at home for watching as well. If you like this kind of conversation, if you're interested in these topics, we want to hear from you. It's the League of Women Voters of the Houston area, lwvhouston.org, lwvhouston.org. Put your email address in there. get our weekly newsletter, learn a little bit more about what we do. We are a nonpartisan organization dedicated to educating voters and increasing voter turnout. I'd like to thank the League for producing this every month, as well as Houston Media Source, who is a sponsor and is this wonderful studio that we're in right now. So on behalf of the League and everybody here, we wish you a good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.